Waiter laughed at a poor man in a luxury restaurant. He had no idea it was Elon Musk in disguise. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon at one of Manhattan's most expensive rooftop restaurants, the kind of place where the wine list had more pages than the menu, and waiters carried themselves like kings serving royalty. Nothing unexpected ever happened there until he walked in. He didn't look like he belonged. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled and faded. A loose hoodie, worn-out sneakers, and a small backpack hanging off one shoulder. He kept his head low and moved slowly, almost like he was unsure whether he was allowed to be there. At first, the other guests barely noticed him. They were too busy sipping champagne and scrolling on their phones. But as he approached the hostess stand, heads began to turn, and when the maitre d' looked up from her tablet, her eyes instantly narrowed. "Can I help you?" she asked, in a tone that already suggested he wasn't welcome. "I'd like a table for one," the man said quietly. The maitre d' forced a smile. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right place?" The man looked around. "Is this Skyview Terrace?" "Yes," she said, "but we have a dress code, and—" she hesitated. "Reservations are required." "I understand," the man replied, "but I'd really appreciate it if I could just sit and have something small. I can pay." That's when the waiter stepped in. Marcus, the tall, sharp-tongued server who had been working there for 3 years. He scoffed under his breath and leaned toward the maitre d'. Loud enough for people at nearby tables to hear, he said, "We don't serve panhandlers." He probably wants to use the restroom and charge his phone. The man stood there quietly, eyes cast downward. The maitre d' chuckled nervously, trying to maintain composure in front of the guests. "I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked for the afternoon." "But the place is half empty," the man said, looking at the open tables. "I'll be quick. I won't bother anyone." Marcus stepped in again. "Listen, buddy," he said, his voice now louder, drawing attention from a nearby couple. "This is not the kind of place you just walk into off the street. Try the deli 2 blocks down. They might have a table." The man nodded slowly. "I see." But just as he turned to leave, something strange happened. One of the guests, an older gentleman in a suit, stood up and said, "Wait." All eyes shifted. The gentleman pointed to his table. "You can sit here. I'm leaving anyway." The poor-looking man thanked him softly and sat down, while Marcus stood frozen in place, a little irritated. But the moment the man opened the menu, his demeanor changed. He wasn't fumbling like someone who'd never been there. He flipped through it with familiarity. He didn't squint at the wine list. In fact, he barely glanced at it. Instead, he placed an order that included the chef's special, something not even listed on the public menu. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How do you know about that?" The man smiled, just a little. "Let's just say, I've been here before." Still irritated, Marcus turned and stomped toward the kitchen, muttering, "This guy's probably bluffing." Meanwhile, a few curious patrons whispered about the scene. Some were annoyed, others intrigued. A young woman near the window discreetly snapped a photo, uploading it with the caption, "Strange man in rags orders VIP dish at Skyview. Who is he?" The post would soon go viral, but no one knew that yet. Back at the table, the man sat silently, occasionally looking around, not nervously, but observantly. Almost like he was studying the place, the people, the way they behaved when they thought someone was beneath them. He sipped his water. When the food arrived, Marcus placed the dish down harder than necessary. "Enjoy your meal, sir." The man smiled again. "Thank you, Marcus." That stopped the waiter in his tracks. "How do you know my name?" The man just took a bite and said nothing more. Something was definitely off. And then, just 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up outside. 2 men in suits stepped out and quietly entered the restaurant. They didn't speak to anyone, just nodded at the man in the hoodie. Marcus watched in confusion as they walked up and whispered something into his ear. The man stood up slowly, pulled off the hoodie, and that's when Marcus's knees nearly gave out. It was him. Elon Musk. Marcus couldn't believe his eyes. The man he had mocked, dismissed, and humiliated was now standing in front of him as the most powerful tech visionary on the planet, Elon Musk, in casual clothes, quiet, unrecognizable, until now. Gasps filled the room. One guest nearly dropped her wine glass. Another whispered, "Is that really him?" But Elon didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. He simply turned back to his table, calm as ever, and sat down again. The maitre d' tried to recover quickly. She rushed over, smiling nervously. "Mr. Musk, I'm terribly sorry. We didn't recognize you." "That's the point," Elon said softly. "You weren't supposed to." She froze. Marcus, standing beside her, felt his mouth go dry. His legs stiffened, his pride shattered. Elon looked directly at him. "Tell me something. Would I have gotten that table if I hadn't been Elon Musk?" Marcus hesitated. I don't know." "Yes, you do," Elon replied. "You made that choice the second you saw my clothes." The room fell quiet. Other staff members peeked from behind the counter. Some guests shifted awkwardly in their chairs. But Elon wasn't done. "I didn't come here to expose anyone," he said. "I came to see something." He looked around the room, eyes scanning the luxury, the faces, the false smiles. "I wanted to know what kindness costs in a place like this." He paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "The answer," he said. "Apparently it's worth less than a pair of clean shoes." Marcus looked down, ashamed. Elon continued, "I've built companies on innovation, on ideas, but more than that, on people. And if we can't treat a stranger with dignity just because of how they look, what are we really building?" Just then, a woman from the kitchen stepped forward, one of the dishwashers. Her uniform was faded, her face tired, but she spoke up, voice trembling. "I saw how you were treated, and I wanted to help, but I was scared." Elon smiled warmly at her. "Your fear doesn't make you weak, but your heart makes you strong." He reached into his pocket and handed her a card. "Call me tomorrow. I'm looking for people like you." Tears welled in her eyes. Elon stood up and looked at the manager, who had finally appeared, red-faced and sweating. "This restaurant is known for excellence, but excellence without empathy is just ego in disguise." He pulled a folded paper from his hoodie and placed it on the maitre d's stand. "That's an offer to invest. I wrote it before I walked in, just in case." The staff stared in disbelief. "But I won't invest in what this place is today," he added. "I'll only invest in what it could become." And with that, Elon picked up his backpack, nodded once, and walked out the door. No security, no press, just a man in a hoodie who'd left a fire in every heart behind him. 3 days later, the restaurant was all over the news. Clips of the mysterious poor man reveal had gone viral. "Elon Musk exposes fake hospitality," one headline read. Another, "Disguised billionaire teaches cruel staff a lesson." The story had gripped the internet. But inside the restaurant, things had changed. Marcus wasn't fired. Elon's final request had been clear. Don't punish him. Teach him. Let this moment grow him. And grow he did. Marcus volunteered to train new staff, not on how to serve food, but how to treat people. He started greeting every guest with the same warmth, whether they wore a $1,000 suit or torn sneakers. Word spread fast. The restaurant, once elite and distant, became something rare, luxurious, yes, but human. Welcoming, the kind of place where anyone could walk in and be seen, not sized up. As for Elon, he didn't just invest. He rebranded the restaurant with a plaque near the entrance. Kindness is the real dress code. EM. One rainy evening, weeks later, Marcus looked up from the bar to see a familiar silhouette walk in. Plain clothes, hoodie, same quiet walk. This time, Marcus didn't flinch. He smiled and said, "Welcome back, Mr. Musk, or whoever you choose to be today." Elon chuckled softly. "Just a hungry man, Marcus. Got a table for me?" Marcus led him in personally. And for the first time, the richest man in the world wasn't judged by his shoes, but remembered for his heart. Because sometimes, The greatest lessons don't come from power. They come from pretending you have none.